How do folkies? So welcome to my channel. This is the introductory video that will talk you through the 7 spindles of sustainable niftiness. So these are kind of the 7 areas that I suggest people can look at to reconnect with living their best lives and their own vitality. It might be that you want to have the energy to do stuff with the grandkids, or it might be that you want to take up a new hobby, or you want to go traveling, or whatever it is. But I'm trying to kind of push back against the societal narrative that things start to snowball and there isn't a way of us accessing our best energy and vitality. So that's what the tribe is going to be like. So if you enjoy my vibe, then please subscribe. Like the videos if you like them. I'd love to have you around, and this is an introduction to the topics that generally I'll be looking at, but there are other things that will bolt on that you'll hopefully see through the channel. This is me, no airs and graces. It isn't kind of a super edited. I'm not trying to collect people. I'm not trying to be an influencer. I'm just trying to enlighten people to what's possible as the best way of living their lives, really. So this first session is the Nifty After 50 overview, Nifty Living, and it talks about the 7 areas that I think interlink really well to allow us to live our best lives. Okay, so you can see what the 7 areas are there. Okay, we've got movement, we've got diet and nutrition. I prefer nutritional practice, if I'm completely honest, but I know that people do sort of look for the word diet. Lifestyle habits, we'll have a look at what is it we're doing in our lives anyway, or what are we not doing in our lives that we could add in and that we can take out or we can modify that allows us to be funky and groovy. Breath work, the role of breath work can play in everything that we do. We'll look at our place in the environment. So we'll start to challenge where we look at, well, what kind of environment are we exposing ourselves to? Spirit and energy, so a little bit of an idea behind cultivating the energetics of who we are, really. And then that ties in with the last one of mind. So looking at our role, our part of a bigger mind, if you like, a mega mind. Hey, that'd be cool, wouldn't it? Maybe I could do that video with a mega mind costume on. If you want that, then tell me in the comments, because that'd be real cool, wouldn't it? I digress. Let's move on and start to look at these 7 areas. So the first one is movement. Yeah, there you go. That was a picture of me in my monk days. No, it wasn't. But what I'm talking about there is, it's not a spelling mistake. Movement. So it's how we mean to move. Are we moving mindfully? Are we paying attention to how we move, to how we sit, to what our posture is? How do we run? How do we walk? Are we doing those things? And as it says there, being mindful movement, not full mind. So it's kind of it's kind of getting out of our own way in that sense, of doing stuff which we know will cultivate our best lives and the energy that we're cultivating ourselves. It does tie in with some of the other ones, as you can start to see. Encouraging people to move from a perspective of anti-fragility. So as I mentioned before, it might be that you want to be able to get down onto the floor and play with the grandkids. It might be that you want to go out and take up things like Nordic walking, or bouldering or rock climbing. What's to say that you can't do that if that's something that you want to enjoy? And it's to allow us, even in our daily tasks, to become anti-fragile, to be able to have a body, to have a system that actually is resistant to the forces that we apply to it. So we're able to move freely, we're able to move without injury and minimize the injury risk, if you like. Fundamentals, and you'll notice that I've purposefully made fun in capitals because that is something that I truly believe. Everything should be fun. Life's for living. We should be enjoying our lives. And let's be honest, how many of us don't at certain elements? I'm not saying we're all kind of, walking around, looking at the floor, but I do see a lot of people in there. And again, if that becomes something that we do day after day after day, it becomes habit, and then becomes a personality. And for me, we're all gifted with this gift of life, this gift of energy. So surely we need to cultivate it, and enjoy the hell out of it while we're doing it. It should be intuitive. Our movement should be intuitive. It should feed us. It should allow us to play with things. Remember when you were a young child and you used to go and play on the park, and you just did things because you enjoyed doing it, because it made sense to do. It wasn't prescribed. You didn't have to follow an outline. You just moved. So that's what I'm trying to encourage in the people that I speak with, that I hang with, literally sort of hanging, and that I work with. Working in versus working out. I came across this through the Czech Institute, through Paul Czech stuff, and I absolutely love the energy or the thought behind it. It speaks to the fact that we should be doing stuff that actually places a bit of or asks questions of our system, so that we can improve the system, we can become fitter, we can become healthier. Completely get that. That's the working out side of things. But we should also be working in. We should be doing stuff that feeds our system, that helps us to grow, that helps us to enjoy the energy that we've got through our lifespan. So for me, both elements of those are really important. Play and problem solving. I attended a workshop a few years back with Ido Portal, and one of the things that he talked about was kinetic koans. So a koan is a riddle, okay, that we have to solve. Excuse me, a little bit of a tickle there. I've been doing frogger moves this morning, so it's obviously moved to my throat. But this idea of play and solving problems, movement problems, So can we play? Again, it's based on play, isn't it? Ties in with fun. That's what we want it to be. And then flexibility in body and in mind. So yeah, we're looking at the mobility that we have and encouraging us to maintain that mobility through the life cycle. Now, for some people, that might be something as simple as being able to reach up and reach stuff off a high shelf, or reaching down to grab something from a low cupboard. For other people, it might be something which is much more developmental mobility and stretching and so on, that ties in with a sporting event, but we should all be looking to do that. And also flexibility in mind, having a growth mindset, if you want to look at kind of the sports psychology literature, that allows us to be open to experiencing different things, So these 7 spindles, some of them, spirituality, for example, people might go, really? But, are you open-minded enough to listen and hear what could be quite useful for you, Okay, nutrition mainstream ripples. So those of you who know me, those of you who've come across me, will know that I kind of advocate a slightly different nutritional plan to the mainstream health messages that have been out in the open for decades, really. More and more now, you'll see that there's various ways of eating. There's things like paleo, there's keto, there's vegan, there's a variety of other things. What was the one I came across the other day? A pear diet. Remember the old cabbage soup stuff, which I'm guessing have all been developed with a positive outcome in mind, to try and help people to manage health and vitality. I'd hope that's the case. But one of the things that I've done more recently is gone with this test-based approach. Okay. So if we want to know the things that we're eating are having a beneficial effect on us, and certainly from a supplementation point of view, then let's find out if it is. So recently I've been taking omega-3 fish oil supplement, because of the literature based around how it reduces inflammation systemically within the body and so on, and protects a range of bodily systems against the aging process. Now, the company that I use actually works on a 6-month testing protocol. So you take a blood sample at the start, a finger prick thing. You then take the oils for 6 months, and then you do a retest at the end of it. So you actually get numbers, you get science that backs up what's happening in terms of the numbers of your omega-6 to 3 ratio. So for me, that kind of makes sense. It takes away that, well, I saw this advert and I started taking this supplement and I think it's working, but I couldn't tell you how, or I couldn't tell you, by how much. Maybe that ties back to my sports science stuff, sort of wanting to make sure that stuff does what it says it does. The next point, Jeff. Excuse me. It's not a mispronunciation of a cleaning product. It stands for just eat real food, which fundamentally for me underpins everything around nutrition. If we're sensible about where we get our food from, if we're sensible about how we prepare our food, and we know what it's going to do for us and provide for us, then that makes complete sense, rather than relying upon information from corporations and companies that might be wanting us to maybe eat and consume things that might not be best for our overall health, which ties in with that bottom one, that industry motives. Who really has got your health at heart? It should be you, okay? But oftentimes, and I've been part of this as well, as part of being in society. We're exposed to adverts and we're given information and we're told that this is good for us and that's not so good for us, and we believe that information. But is it always true? So we'll start to kind of delve in a little bit around that, and I'll talk a bit more about sort of the images I've got here, sort of good energy, the idea behind reducing inflammation, and how that impacts on our cellular health, and sort of various talks that relate to how industry specialists and health professionals have kind of switched their perspective, which is now having a beneficial effect on their clients and patients. Excuse me. So lifestyle habits, our life-work balance, and you'll notice that's different from what a lot of people talk about as a work-life balance. Because for me, why is work coming first? But that's how we often frame it, isn't it? We stick work at the front, which means that then life is everything in the gaps in between. Life is what we can do at weekends, or when we book time off, when we're allowed to take time off work, which we'll come to in a minute. And we talk about that as a subconscious acceptance, don't we? There's a set way that our life is going to pan out. We're going to go through school, we're going to go through college, we're going to go through university, and then we're going to get a job, we're going to buy a house, blah, 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 blah. There's a prescribed method that we should follow. But there are other ways, and there are plenty of people living those other ways. Habits of thought. Joe Dispenza talks about the fact that, I think is it something like 90% of the thoughts we have every day are the same ones. And that's not through a choosing thing, it's through a subconscious thing, So we think the same thoughts, which means that we do the same things, which means that we live the same lives. And then we're wondering why things aren't changing, So it ties in with the habits of how can we catch what we're doing, first of all. And again, that's part of what I'm about. I'm not about this finger wagging, but I'm like, what can you notice? What can you pick up on? I'll challenge you. I'll ask questions. I'll probe, if you like, in that sense. Not the South Park alien sense. And then just get you to think about, well, what are these regular thought patterns, or and it might not necessarily be a certain thought, but it could be a theme of thoughts, that we have. Perception of control links in with what I was saying before. We take holidays when our employer says we can. How daft's that? We're asking somebody else to to let us go out and play. I suppose it's like going back to being kids in that sense, isn't it? You know, you want to check with your parents. Oh, can I go out and play? Or I've got to come back in because it's going dark. You know, but it's like we're letting other people sort of regulate what we can and cannot do. So it becomes this perception of control. Well, who is in control of what we do? It's us, by the way. We'll come back to that one. And then, as I mentioned before, it's about increasing awareness. It's not about finger wagging. It's not about finger pointing, although I just pointed then. Yeah. Yeah, it's about being aware of these things, because once we're aware, then we might be able to kind of go, oh, I need to change that. I didn't realize I kept going to that as my standard response, or that's a regular thought that I have about, you know, money or sort of people who live sort of in various parts of the country and so on. You know, breath work. So again, we'll have a little bit of an explore of breath work, because to me, again, that really helps in terms of integrating our health through the mechanics of breathing. So we know that we should be breathing in a certain way. We'll talk about belly breathing versus sort of shallow chest breathing. And there are different mechanisms. I'm not going to purport that one is better than others. Excuse me. But what I am going to do is kind of, again, let people have a look and then decide for yourself, you know. And if you want sort of guidance along that, then let's do that, you know. Let's have conversations. Let's explore what might be a good fit for you, and so on. And if there is something you want to do based upon this video or some of the other ones that you've watched that are on my channel, you'll notice there's a link in the description for my Calendly. If you just want to book a quick kind of half-hour conversation, then book a slot, and we'll have a chin wag. Okay. So again, we're looking at optimizing the internal environment. We're looking at the chemistry of what goes on through breathing and how we can influence that. We're looking at how we can have a positive impact on stress and anxiety relief, either through certain techniques or through certain methods of breathing and breath work. And then also the role that the breath work plays in terms of gaining insight and following meditative practices. So again, for people who might be interested in that, that's one of the main benefits that we can look at with the breathwork stuff. If you want to tie it more into the stress and anxiety stuff, or if you're more interested from a breathing regulation stuff while you're exercising, then again, take it in that direction, you know. Place and environment. We often talk, don't we, of I'm going to be in nature. I'm going to go off and have a retreat in nature. Like we're separate from it. But the news flash is we're all part of the same system. We're connected to nature. We're part of the system. We can't not be, because we exist on this earth, you know. So again, it's helping people to see this symbiotic, you know, complementary role that we have, and the behaviors that we have and how that might be impacting and so on. And again, you know, I'm not going to be sort of waving a flag and carrying a banner and that kind of thing. But again, it's asking questions. It's checking in with people in terms of awareness and what are we doing or what are we not doing, in terms of our natural behaviors. And I mentioned circadian rhythms there, and that's one which is quite key that we don't necessarily always think about. It's something I've explored a lot more recently, having been doing some night shift work, which has a really big impact on our circadian rhythm, and how things from a health perspective can be altered as a result of doing night shift work. But we can see how that ties in with things like our hormone levels and so on. Okay, the importance of tribe and socialization. This is what I'm trying to build here, you know, a tribe of like-minded people who are interested, who want to explore, who want to transform their health, you know, but might not have considered some of these areas and the impact that they can have, you know. Oftentimes we're told now that health and fitness and so on, and the only way that we can change that is by eating loads of salad, or, you know, going jogging 4 times a week, or having, 200,000 steps a day, another made up number. But actually not looking at a lot of these other areas and the impact that they can be having on the stuff that we do, and integrating these for longevity in the long run, rather than seeing them as a fixed thing that we have to do for a set period of time. There was a program on Netflix, and there is stuff in various other places on the internet about blue zones and the importance of blue zones, these places in the world where people miraculously live for longer. And what are the secrets to their healthy living? What are they doing that they're not telling us about? Well, actually, generally what they're doing is living a nice, simple, intuitive life. The things that we're talking about. They eat good food. They move regularly as part of living, rather than something they have to do, like going to the gym. And they live in areas that in an environment that is supportive, in that sense, lower pollutions and so on. But then it does lead to this thing of toxicity that are tagged on the end of this one. I'm a big believer in the benefits of wild swimming, or swimming in natural environments and so on. But obviously here in the UK, which is where I'm based, something which has reared its head on a number of occasions over the last few years is the amount of waste products that are being regularly pumped into our water system, into our lakes and rivers and streams, and the sea, consequently. So that can be something that we're trying to do, or encourage the benefits of a good, healthy behavior while swimming. But that can be offset from a health perspective by the behaviors of certain companies, shall we say, that are responsible for polluting the waterways. If Fergal Sharkey's watching, then tell him get in touch. I'd love to speak to him. Spirituality and energy, access to wisdom, our wisdom, the wisdom of the body, something through doing somatics masters, I found to be incredible. And there are a lot of good somatic practitioners that are available. I'm going to get some on the channel actually and have a conversation with them, if not just for a catch up with me, my old sort of course mates. But I think it'd be really useful for people to hear about accessing the wisdom of the body through the energy and the spirituality that we have. I'm not going to go into various factions of religious practices or anything like that. It's not what this is about. This is about spirituality and our energetic makeup as a whole, okay? Without those labels attached, because all of those labels will be attached by the people who have those beliefs. What I'm speaking to is this interconnectedness of everything, the eternity of being, the fact that our energy, some people believe in things like reincarnation and what have you. Other people will talk about transfers of energy. Energy is being transferred all the time to us and from us. We're constantly communicating through energetic means. And then we are kind of these rechargeable batteries. We can recharge the system. Things like earthing or grounding, are practices which people use to make use of the energetic charge from the earth. We know that negative ions from the ocean, when people go to the ocean, reporting alterations and cleansings, at a cellular level. So that's something else we'll kind of have a little bit of a delve into. Not the cold water, although it's good for you. And then lastly, the seventh spindle is mind. So we'll have a look at things like memories, and the role that our memory plays. Sometimes people say, oh, my memory is not what it used to be. Well, actually it is. Your memory is that place where you store all the experiences that you come across in life, and they all get put into your memory banks, so it is always what it's always been and what it always will be. the problems occur when we just can't access stuff that we might not be able to get out. It's like throwing stuff all in the big room and forgetting whereabouts you've put it and have to rummage through to get hold of it, you know. We'll explore something called subtractive psychology, which is a little bit different from some of the psychological interventions people may have come across. It's grounded in something called the 3 principles that I came across about 12 years ago. And it talks to the fact that we tend to perform better with less on our minds. So if we're unburdened, if you like, through thought, if we haven't got a million different voices yabbering away, and one of the books that I really like that is the Steve Peters book, the Chimp Paradox, kind of sums that up nicely. The little sort of chimp kind of chirping away. If we're able to through mindfulness, maybe through breath work, we're able to clear the mind or come from a clear mind, you know, then actually we tend to perform better because we're more tuned into our true wisdom, if you like. I have a little bit of a discussion or an exploration around habits of thought. Again, we mentioned the Joe Dispenza stuff. Yeah, we have the same thoughts every day, 90% of them. And that becomes a subconscious thing that we keep doing, and we wonder why things aren't changing. Superstitions, you know, where do superstitions come from? Other than the funk of Stevie Wonder, you know. But when you think about it, what are superstitions other than beliefs that we take on board and we choose to see as being real, you know? And what that actually points to is that the mind's infinitely variable, because different people will have different sets of beliefs and different superstitions, you know? So does that mean that one set's right and the other set's wrong? Well, not if you looked at it from the other person's perspective, you know? And we do have that ability to change our beliefs. Oftentimes as adults, we have different beliefs and different superstitions than we did as children and young folk, you know? So that's proof that there's a variability in if we're allowing that to happen. And I'd ask that you approach the content with that same recognition that things can change, that what you might have been told about health and fitness might only be part of the picture, or actually there could be a different way of looking at how we should structure our nutrition, or there can be a different way that actually allows you to be able to move on a more regular basis. You know, just because you don't want to go to the gym or because you didn't like PE at school, that doesn't matter. You know, you're not at school now. You know, you don't have to go to the gym. There's so many things that are available to you that's going to help you to transform your energy, your vitality, and ultimately your health and longevity, which is what we're aiming for, you know, and having fun while you're doing it. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the comments below. As I mentioned before, you know, please click subscribe if you feel drawn to. If you don't, that's all right. You know, hopefully I've been a little bit entertaining. I'm kind of stuck in position. I normally do move around a lot more than this, but there you go. And just remember this, I love this. Age is just a number. Nifty is a lifestyle, because it should be built into everything that we do. It should pour out of all our pores. And our pores, if we're feline or doggy. Because I forgot what the thing for dogs was then. Are you feline fine if you're a cat? You know, canine. Oh, of course it is, Doctor Who. Affirmative, master. So there you go. Thanks for watching. Check out some of my other videos that have got each of these 7 areas in a bit more detail. And hope to have you hanging around for a wee while. I'll read. Ta-da!